Hey, welcome to the vlog. It's Tuesday evening, 5:30 p.m. I just got word that one of my customers' cars is being delivered down at the bottom of the street, so I'm just going to walk down there and pick it up. It's on an enclosed 18-wheeler all the way from Long Island, New York. Very excited for this car. I think we've had one or two in before, but certainly not this nice. This is a car my client's been looking for a few months. I didn't find this particular example, but I did send him a lot. Not exactly what he's looking for. It's not the color that he wanted, but it's a pretty cool color. Allegedly, he's parked right down here at the end of the street, and I'm going to try to get it inside before it starts to rain. It's just misting now. We're about to go into like 7 days of wind and rain and cold. It's just a shit winter so far. January was a wash. February's been freezing cold, and now the last week of it's going to be a wash. But I'm going to pick that up, drive it up the hill, and put it inside so we can do an MPI on it. Probably won't be able to drive it until the rains end, which is supposed to be Sunday. So next Monday, we'll get it out for some road testing, build a service plan for him. And his goal is fairly lofty, although not for this particular example, I don't think, but he wants this to be a pretty perfect mint original car. Now the problem is I don't see a truck. Oh, there's a truck. Okay, we're back. We'll get a better look at the M3 here in a few minutes, but I wanted to show you this car in a little bit more detail, the 2002 M5 from BC. We got a lot of work done on this car today. Fuel filter, motor mounts, rear struts, rear wishbones, whole front ends reassembled. Stainless brake lines are in and bled. I don't remember if that was yesterday or today, but all those arms and components up front are new. Got to get the cabin boxes back in still and test the brakes with the engine running to see how things feel, so that's why that's still out. But I just finished reassembling the rear parcel shelf from the rear struts and working with all this leather back here. This might be the nicest condition interior we've seen to date. That feels identical to what the F10 M5 felt like new. It is so soft and smooth without being oily. It's not glossy, it's perfectly matte. Look at those seatbelt buttons. Totally red, no scuffs, no fading, no hazing, just immaculate. The headrests, the back of the headrest is usually rock hard. This feels exactly like F10 M5 new leather. Unbelievable. Now this is a Canadian car, so the Alcantara headliner was not standard, it was an option, and this car lacks that option. It has folding seats, it has park distance control, it has sunshades, it has M audio, it has everything but that. It's got the full array of buttons up there in the console, but it didn't get the headliner, so that might be the only thing it's missing. In HomeLink, on an 02, I think all the US cars got HomeLink. This does not have that. Thankfully, we're about to delete the phone tray. He's going to keep it with the car, but he wants to get rid of that and put the standard tray in. Just leaning in on this leather. Jeez, it is so supple. I know I'm just nerding right now. Look at the plumpness. Wow, it is plump. Yeah, sorry about that, but this looks like it's never been touched. It looks like no one has ever ridden back here. The sunshade works, the little quarter shade. This one works. These door panels have never been removed. The vinyl has not come unglued from that. We just replaced this door sill. There were some cracks in this rubber here, so I suspect we're about to do the door lock actuators on the rear very carefully. But I suspect that this vapor barrier shot and it was leaking water onto this, which just rotted it out. So that's a new sill. This leather, totally just almost moist. It's so plump. Yeah, so the back seat's back together. Everything's torqued properly, with the exception of the new arms at ride height because we have no wheels on the car, because the subframe's lowered, because the diff is out. Diff is out because it's getting resealed. That is done. Michael worked on that today. Nice clean pumpkin here. Only the beginnings of some surface corrosion through some of that paint. So all of that is clean, ready to go back in the car. Fresh seals. Oh, it's so satisfying. And the drive shaft, I am going to recommend the center support bearing. While we're here, it's making a little bit of noise and it makes sense to do it now. Parts box is getting smaller. We've got power steering lines to go. The diff mounts, the old mounts are out. We're about to put the new ones in. They're pretty dry, but they're not yet cracking, but it just makes sense while the differentials have to put the fresh bushings in there. We've got lock actuators in there. There's a glove box strut that needs to go on. Trans mounts need to go in still. Center console handle and tray. More steering lines, exhaust hardware, unicorn egg, and fresh factory rear bushings. I had all this organized. I don't know this. Not naming names, but somebody comes in here and rifles through it. There's the center console tray, drive shaft seal, and power steering reservoir O-ring. And then the outside of this car, we've gotten a couple little fingerprints on it. We will detail this car and take time on it like it's one of my own before the customer picks it up. It is just as perfect on the outside. It's all ceramic coated. This car feels just like clean glass. I don't know how else to describe it. It looks wet. Titanium silver is a easy color to make look good, but this, I mean, where are the stone chips? Where are 60,000 miles worth of wear? I don't get it. You know, that's yellow. I would replace that for purely cosmetic reasons, but that's original paint. Those little marks up there just blew right away. Look at that. Stunning. Speaking of excellent condition, and yes, we made sure this car is completely dry. There's no chance anything drips on this. 2004 E46 M3 Imola Rat 2, black interior, Harman Kardon audio, door airbags, xenon lights. It might be the only options it has. No navigation system, no park distance control. It's got the M3 mats. Look at the leather on the seats. Look at the door card. Look at the sills. Look at the steering wheel. We'll get a look at the paint in a minute. And take a freaking look at the mileage. 19,750 big ones. It's got the 03 plus mirror. Luke, if you watch that, leave me a comment or shoot me a text. Let me know what that was. Full array of buttons here. So heated seats, that was an option. Part of the cold weather package. Obviously a 6-speed car, no SMG. That is the absolute worst thing about the SMG or the E46 is that horrible beep that I'll ask him if he wants me to code off. Top up, top down, DSC, Sport, TPMS, which I imagine is RDC, and the other heated seat button. We may end up replacing those cubbies or trims just because I really think he's looking for pretty much perfect with this car. And it's honestly not going to take all that much. There's only a few imperfections in the body. It could use a little bit of polishing. I don't want to say sanding, a little bit of polishing and ceramic coat. And that's just me nitpicking, looking for perfection. You know, 3 Series paint is nowhere near 5 Series paint quality. So there's a couple little swirls, little surface scratches, some hard water spots that I think would 99% polish out. Up here, there's one imperfection. I can't tell if that's been filled with touch-up paint or if that chip just didn't make it all the way through the paint. I'm going to look at the sub 20,000 mile S54 B32, I believe. Immaculately clean, strut towers are clean. You can see where they've detailed this engine and neglected areas like this. In fact, they may have dressed that. It looks like that's collected dirt, something stuck in some silicone maybe. Secondary air pumps up here on the M3. I don't remember where mine was on the 330xi. I think my ABS module was in there. I know they moved it in some year and it got harder to work on. Ballasts are located here. The other one's under the expansion tank. Nice easy access to the brake fluid reservoir and what maybe looks like an evap purge valve right there. Nice and easy access. DME boxes on the driver's side for the E46. Headlights are pretty much mint. Front bumpers in magnificent condition. I really like this car. Unfortunately, the E46 has a handful of, in my opinion, debilitating flaws. I know they can be remedied, but subframe, chassis, Vanos hub, rod bearings, I don't even want to put Vanos on that list. That's not really that much of a problem, but those are some pretty big issues. What I mentioned there earlier, those, I really hope he hates those as much as I do. I would love to peel those off and throw them away. I don't know if all the convertibles had this aerial. I mean, this is an 04, that's pretty late, so probably so. The rear window is glass. How cool is that? The top is super smooth, super quiet. I've had it up and down a couple of times now. It works flawlessly. The E46 has some cheap issues with like bumper fitment and interior trim. The door panels are real flimsy. It's still an E46. It's not a 5 Series, but you can see where they don't bother detailing it. But wow, what a wonderful example of an E46 M3, and we're very excited to work on this. So we'll start with the MPI multi-point inspection, and usually I'm looking for things that are big problems, and I kind of gauge the customer. Does this guy just want the car to go straight down the road and not explode, or is he looking to make it a show car? And this, we're going to kind of look for the show car thing. I know the rear bumper's been painted. In fact, there were some damage, some light scuffs and scrapes in this body liner, this crease here, I believe. in the for sale photos, and now they're not there and the paint looks perfect. So it has been repainted or touched up. Color match looks good. It's a little bit brighter than the surrounding panels, but there's all the more reason to do some sanding. Detailers are a little bit sloppy, not getting around the badging there. And then as I noted online, these push rivets down here that end in 185 are painted red, which is not a factory thing. So whoever painted it left the diffuser in place and just sprayed the whole thing at once, which is occasionally indicative of kind of a cheaper paint job. But at least in this lighting, which isn't great, looks pretty solid. These wheels almost look chrome shadow to me. I was under the impression that only the Style 65s and then the Z3M wheels were chrome shadow. Might have to revisit that. That definitely looks like a chrome shadow finish. They're all in beautiful condition. There's one scratch there, undoubtedly from tire mounting. A little bit of an imperfection there, but man, we are nitpicking. There's zero curb rash. I guess there's that. My bad. Got little 225s up front. I don't know if that's factory or not. I would have thought they'd be at least 235s. These are Continental Sport Contact SSRs, dated 2020 with loads of tread left. The car probably hasn't driven 1,000 miles since then. This is an E46 thing I wish were nicer. This is just an $8 cheap plastic grill with holes in it. I'm sure it's $500, but something a little bit nicer there would have gone a long way. This cowl is a little bit faded, a little bit gray. We'll see if he wants to do that. It looks like somebody worked at, is that Owens? Hi, Owens Corning. I think that's a glass company. World headquarters parking permit. This car came from Long Island, so I assume that company's out there somewhere. I'm excited though. This is a fun project. I have not driven an S54 car in probably 18 months or so, and that would have been a Z4M that I drove last, Black Sapphire from Enthusiast Auto. And before that would have been Stevens Titanium Silver E46 M3 SMG back in Ohio like 6 years ago, quite a while. And now in this angle, I'm seeing two dings in that rear quarter panel. See one right there above the body line, and then we got one below it in the yellow reflection of the helibox right now. Fairly minor, away from body lines. I don't know what interior access to that panel looks like. It is still a 19-year-old car. And as I say, life happens. So it isn't flawless, but it's pretty damn close. I did a bit of work on the 03 today, ordered a lot more parts. He authorized all the rest of the services. So we are doing absolutely everything on this car, which I'm excited about. So I ordered another $4,000 worth of parts today. I didn't get a lot done on this, just with running around and doing everything else, but we've got a new sticker back there on the badge that looks a lot better. Replaced the power steering reservoir bushings. Took that headlight out. The front right headlight was intermittent. Sometimes it'd work fine for like 5 minutes and then it would start flickering and go out. Other times it wouldn't work at all. So I took the light out, put a new ballast in that I got today, and we're back in business there. So those are done and tightened down and aimed properly. And the cluster's still out, awaiting to be returned from the pixel repair guy. And I noted a couple of things. So when the instrument cluster's not in the car, you do not get navigation. You might get a splash screen. The screen will light up black, but it will not populate. It will not display the interface without a cluster. You also will not get headlights that level without a cluster. You'll turn the headlights on, they'll go down, they'll come back up a little bit, but they don't do the third and most critical adjustment. It's final adjustment up based on the values from the LRA or the height sensors on the suspension. I don't know what it is about the cluster. I know the cluster acts as a gateway, so it may not actually be connecting the LRA to the LCM. So that's another thing that doesn't work. Lock and unlock the car, it beeps, the lights don't flash without a cluster. And of course you can't do any coding or programming without a cluster because, as I said, it acts as the gateway to the whole system. I mentioned that the Arctic 540 owner, I was going to propose valve cover gaskets and upper timing cover gaskets. He authorized those repairs, got most of the parts today, so we'll dig into that later. This M62 is leaving quite a mess overnight, so that should take care of things there. This is a 98 car, so a pre-Vanos M62 B44, no technical update, which means the upper timing covers are slightly more simplistic, and it doesn't have, anybody that's worked on BMW, these V8s, M62 and S62, the front 3 bolts on the valve covers are different, and they have thicker grommets on them. Not on the pre-Vanos, they're all the same. So instead of like 16 of one grommet and 6 of another, you just buy 22 of the one grommet. They're all the same. And then of course we don't have those Vanos solenoid holes in the upper timing covers, which removes some complication from that job. That's all I got for today. It is 8:10 p.m. I'm gonna head out, perhaps hit In-N-Out on the way home, get something to eat, or I'll go home and shower and then go get it. I don't know. I can hear the rain coming down. It's cold and it's gonna do nothing but rain now for the next 8 days. There's another Pacific storm this winter. Everybody says we need the rain and it's good, sure, but holy shit, am I sick of it. Almost forgot the 50,000 mile carbon black. So couple small updates here. We found a brake hose that was kinked and catching on the front sway bar upper part of the stud that sticks through and has the nut on it. So I loosened up that line, adjusted it so it's not kinked. Lost a drip of fluid, but the brakes are still super tight. They feel really good on this car. In fact, I'm going to ask the owner what pads they are. I love how they feel, though I can see that they dust. This car was clean when it came in. 40 miles later, they're very brown. But we finally received the post-cat oxygen sensors, which are due Friday and then Monday, and finally showed up on Tuesday. So those are in and torqued, properly routed and wired. We did all 4 oxygen sensors preventatively. We did the plugs and coils earlier this week. Took the blue bus out. He had a bunch of issues. I updated the Bluetooth chip. It's a Gen 2 blue bus, so it's the BM83 Bluetooth chip as opposed to the BC127. So we did a firmware update on the Bluetooth chip, A. B, we did a software update on the blue bus to 1.3.2 release candidate 2, which I have as a developer of TED from Blue Bus, and that fixes a bunch of problems. We converted them to digital DSP, so it sounds way better. We installed a microphone in the headliner, the 338 part number, and then we did the 27-pin SES connector in the back to connect to the hands-free. So we are rocking in there. It sounds awesome, and it's as good as this setup can get with the current software. There's still a couple of little hisses and pops and whatnot when you switch from audio output to phone. That's just the way it is. The car was never meant to stream silence, so it starts to way over amplify the silence, and then you actually start hearing the messages being sent around through the CAN bus and the iBus system. He's got factory headers, factory cats, a Rogue Engineering, no, that is a Super Sprint X-Pipe without the resonators, and Super Sprint mufflers, and this car sounds unbelievable. It's a little bit louder than mine, a little bit deeper than mine. It isn't raspy, it isn't high pitched. This thing's super raspy, I can tell. I haven't had it over 4,000 RPM, but that is 54 is just rasp city, which is something I don't love, but I hear what you want to do as an Venturi intake and leave the exhaust system mostly stock. But this thing sounds awesome. They're kind of factory size tips, probably around the 70 millimeter mark. I like my Eisenman 76s a little bit better. Eisenman is a better system, but this sounds really good. I got the last car pulled in, and with that, we only have one WBA or non-M car in this entire shop, and that's a 98 540. It's all straight 6 or V8 M power, baby. Look at this.